And that's why this game's come successful, is because you realize you have something very shitty, but it's something shitty that you can turn into something. It's like the
Yeah.
South Park episode. Bono was the biggest piece of shit in the world. That's, he was 8 Keurigs big, and he became a rock star. But he started out as a piece of shit. Holy shit. I'm back from the dead. You're stuck with me. No Dane this week because, the funny thing is, I didn't realize for about till 4 months after he didn't get married that he wasn't actually married.
Yeah.
So he's getting
That's fair.
married. So congrats to Dane. Podcast starting now. Yeah, that the whole Dane not being married thing, like I was so confused about it. Like what happened? Did you
Yeah.
did you just do a because I knew like the ceremony was off, but did you actually get married or did you not? And he's like, no. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Just no,
So now
there was
now
no
it's
like
for
legal
reals.
signing. Yeah. This is like the
Yeah,
reals,
now
the
it's
reals deals. Yeah.
yeah, they act like a married couple, so it's fine. So
Yeah.
that part's they
It's
got that
yeah.
part in the bag, so they'll be good. They'll be
Yeah.
good.
You just do the
So
ceremonial
I
part.
know before I took my sabbatical, uh we have a new just going through the format to
Hmm.
start of what we're gonna go over for tonight.
Yeah.
And Blake, we'll call them show notes because it sounds pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
Blake sent me the show notes earlier today to process over.
Try to be
So we got
professional.
very professional. Even the way you have it listed out like this is just like I'm showing my phone kind of if I can get the glare. It's just super. Looks I'm like, wow, this is professional operation we got going
Yeah.
on here.
We're getting professional at almost episode 100. We're finally
Yeah, it
organizing
takes
this thing.
takes time.
Takes
This
time.
doesn't happen
Takes time.
overnight
Yeah.
or over a year or a year and a half. But this week we're gonna go over. This is actually a lot of stuff, good stuff. I'm a little upset that there's nothing to bitch about coming back, and I can't get all just. Well, I'll find something to get heated about, but nothing stands out immediately.
Right.
Initial thoughts of Fab 2.0, and then we're gonna go over RTN early meta, and then what we will think will shift from there
Hmm.
on out. And I have thoughts on all of this just from what I've seen in my deck box collection. But 2.0, Blake, 2.0.
Yeah. I think 2.0 has been huge. I actually the most of the stuff like the high rarity stuff has been slightly easier to pull, which is what they wanted in terms of like I think the rainbow foil legendaries. The cold foils still feel like big hits. You don't have this it's not going to devalue the cold foils from these last few sets. We're never going to see again the days of alpha or arcane, right? But the last couple sets, it feels like the cold foils have basically just leveled out. Like a cold foil crown of seeds is the same as a rainbow foil crown of seeds, which is crazy to me because it should be harder to get a cold foil crown of seeds. But I think this will actually make the cold foils a little more valuable, which is nice if you like to collect them and keep them. The biggest thing I noticed, I don't know if you noticed this, and I'm curious what other people think or have experienced, but rainbow foil majestics are really hard to get.
Yeah. Like one, so in my boxes, so I've opened two cases, and then me and Chris split a case.
Okay.
And so I think 2.0 is a huge success. And one is because the cases are all over the place.
Yeah.
So my worst case was one Marvel, one Legendary. My
Hmm.
best case was three Legendaries, one of them being Cold Foil. And in my one Legendary case, it was a Cold Foil Legendary.
Okay.
But then my best case, I had three uh three Legendaries. Two of them were Rainbow. One was a Cold Foil. I got lucky. I got Flame Scale in Providence as my
Mm.
two
Yeah.
cold foils. I did get the two cold foils I wanted, so I feel fortunate. And then I just got one Marvel in the other box. But I pulled now. We got a pack for participation on Tuesday.
Hmm.
For the CC, and I pulled another uh Phoenix token cold foil. So
Oh,
I've pulled
nice.
two of
Yeah.
those. So I've pulled more cold foils, just open random packs, than I have of the Marvel rarities than in the actual cases. Because I think I've opened now 3 Marvel rarities between pre-release and then just one pack, and I got it.
That's funny.
Than I have in my 2 cases.
Yeah.
So in
There you go.
in 13 packs, I did better than in 2 cases for Marvel rarities. And then Chris opened ours, and we had 2 and 2.
Okay.
So 2 Marvel, 2 Legendary split. So the cases are all over the place. Boxes can be really bad. Like if you buy, which I think is good. I think that's good that you can buy a God box, as people are terming them, and a bad. So I had a box that was cold foil common, 6 Majestics, 1 rainbow foil, and that's not 7 total, 6 total Majestics with
Yeah.
one of them being a rainbow foil. That was in my good case, so that
Mhm.
felt a little better. But oh man, if you bought one box and that was your box, I think
Yeah.
I'd be crying.
So far for me, my biggest thing has been like the rainbow foil majestics are definitely going to be the hardest thing to track down, which is kind of annoying. Like we like that shine life, we live that shine life, so having to hunt those down and track them down is going to be a pain. But I think that that's actually going to help them hold value, which is nice because in recent sets, the only majestics that in rainbow foil had any value were like the really sought after ones, like foil Oakenolds were going to be worth more money because they were good in Starvo. But a lot of the foils from the last couple sets, like the Majestics, just felt real bad because they were either like a combination of not as usable or they were just not rare enough. It was just too easy to get them because the foils were there. But my understanding is that the if you get a rainbow foil legendary or fabled or something, it takes the spot of that what would be a rainbow foil majestic, like the high rarity rainbow foil. So that's why we're seeing it, is because the mix of the packs and how everything is in them. You're losing some rainbow foils to other stuff, which I don't mind. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think less rainbow foil majestics is better. The majestics feel like they're rarity wise okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes those hits. Like I pulled one erase face foil
Oh
that felt
yeah.
really good.
Yep.
I mean, that felt great. And pulled, and I think you did too, the backwards rewind, which
Yep.
was a great. Just I love the idea there. That
Yeah.
really cool thinking to do that. Uh, but erase face, as we're talking about 2.0, that card's a home run. Like
Yeah.
that is a home run. It the fact. So I was thinking about that. It causes so many blocks. I mean, you think
Mm-hmm.
about Bravo, for to dominate has to be a guardian card.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a guardian card. It affects so many different decks that it was a really good. It was a big hit. It was a
Yep.
big hit. We haven't seen that. I don't think that's probably the best generic majestic since
Mm-hmm.
Command and Conquer. I mean, am I
Yep.
wrong?
No, I don't think
I mean,
so. I think it's an interesting card too because they put it in a place where it interacts in a different way in the game that I think we've seen a lot of like the negative interactions because it is weird, obscure things that you don't think about. I think people miss the fact that like in Katsu, he can't Katsu because he can't go get a ninja card because there are no ninja cards in his deck anymore if he gets Rare's
correct.
Face.
Yeah.
Sonic Boom, Lesson in Lava, and Kano. You can still Kano cards and play them, but like triggered effects that say search for a specific type of card, those cards no longer exist in your deck. So
Right. So you literally can't Sonic Boom a card.
exactly, it puts you in a weird spot because it messes with certain things. It changes the effectiveness of certain cards, which is good. I like that design space. I like negative hit triggers
I
personally that
I think
aren't.
you have to have them.
Yeah, I think I like them in a way. Um, One of the things that I think maybe more important about it is the fact that it's a negative hit trigger that isn't a discard effect or a pay effect. It's just this is going to affect the game in a weird way. So now you have to think
Yep.
about obscure things where you're like, okay, what happens if I take this? How does it affect me? And there are some heroes that are going to be pretty indifferent to it. Like Briar is pretty indifferent to it because it doesn't have to be a specific type of non-attack or attack, right?
Right. No, I mean Briar won't. But here's what there hasn't been many cards that affect Bravo, like where he's like has to block too much. If you if they if they geez, I can't even think of the term. Put in face up.
Like
Come
reveal
on,
it.
help me out here. On
Oh,
pulverize and
pulverize.
on.
Yeah, yeah.
But what's
Oh,
the
heave it.
term called?
Heave it.
Heave it.
Yeah.
So if you heave a card in, your seismic surges. If you don't block erase face, your seismic surges won't pay for that card that's
Yep.
heaved.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So that to me, that's just a cool. I think they did a really good job on the making of this card. It's just a
Yeah.
very well made card, and to have a generic like this that's going to be valuable and hold its value for long term. That's kind of where I was getting very roundabout. Is just a value majestic like
Yep.
this, a nice chase card that's playable and worth money. And we had talked about this. So CNC, E Strike, and even Nourishing Emptiness,
Mhm.
all 3 blocks, and they decided to go with a 2 block on this one.
Yeah, that was definitely the more interesting thing to me was that they went with the 2 block on this one because of
And they did it on several cards within the set that they put 2 blocks in.
Mhm.
We had talked about the card.
Oh,
You don't like the card.
yeah.
I'm going to try it.
Tome of Divinity
Yes.
or Duplicity.
Uh,
Duplicity.
Duplicity.
Yep.
Where they could have easily put a 3 block on that, and they
Mhm.
chose to put a 2 block. And I don't understand it because it seems it seems like a poor man's Gaze of the Ages,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
A very poor man's Gaze of the Ages. And that's a 3 block. So, and we didn't, your reasoning was very good of why you thought they did, but they could have put a 3 block.
Yeah.
So they're in listening to James White get interviewed, I think it was Instant Speed. I listened to a little
Mhm.
bit of
Yep.
that just because I wanted to hear some things that he had to say about very interesting things about why the Dorinthia versus Reiner was that
Reinar,
they
yep.
purposely made cards that were worse to help a
Worse.
new player
Yep.
pick the easier card to block with so that it gets them into that mindset of the game that this card is
Right.
obviously worse. So a lot of things that people were bitching about, he was so 3019
Yeah.
that he
Yeah.
was over people's heads of this is why we did it. It is worse. It's meant to be worse for a reason to help people pick what you block with and what you're going to play with and what
Right.
you're going to pitch with. So things like that was awesome to hear his conversation on that. And then that in the design space that they can't always follow this curve that is made
Mhm.
because you're just gonna have the same.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that maybe on erased face they don't follow the curve. They give that 2 block. Just do you need to put another 6 in? Because being a 6 in this game right now is huge. So
Yep.
just any
Means
6
a lot.
2 cost, it's pummable. A lot of things going on with it.
Yeah, the 6 power cards have such a huge interaction because when a card is 6 power, like it immediately becomes a card that brutes will look at. So like that, it's relevant to their class. It's relevant in the opposite fashion to illusionists because it's a negative for them. If it's a 6 power card, it is relevant to everybody else because of the illusionist. Like, is this a good card into the meta? And I think that's the big thing. And I like that design space of like creating these little pockets of cards where they start to become better sectioned off for different heroes and in different ways. Like I think that, Nourishing Emptiness is the better option a lot of times in 6 power for say like a Dorinthia or like a Kasai that's very weapon focused, because if they see one early and they don't need it as a popper, they can just play it and try to gain some value, get a force block out of the first one. Then the rest of them are poppers for the game, and that's okay. And then in other decks, they might go, well, Nourishing's not very good because I'm going to play a lot of attack cards. Like Guardians will always run. If they run a 6 power, they typically want to run CNC because they run pummels, and CNC with pummel is bonkers. But that's another one that I think CNC starts to get worse and worse. It's still a very good card. Don't crucify me if you're listening. It's still a very good card, but they're making more ways to interact with it. And in the same way, they're doing the same thing to like Wizard and Arcane Damage and Rosetta Thorn with things like Oasis Respite and Sand Cover and all these like ward cards and stuff, where now all of a sudden, if you can do something at instant speed to interact with like a pummel, like there's a lot of four. Like all of a sudden, like just Sand Cover for Dromai and Oasis Respite for like the rest of the world, all of a sudden pummel is a completely different beast, because it's like, well, pummel CNC is how you kill people, how you mess with people, how you destroy their arsenal, rip their hand. And the second somebody just goes Oasis Respite, gain a life, don't take any damage from the pummel. It's like you had a huge investment, you know, a 3-4 card investment into this pummeled CNC that now is just completely shut down by a generic card that is good in a lot of matchups. Like Oasis Respite completely blocking out a Rosetta Thorn is so good. So good.
It and that's another design spot. Just the red. Now red means something more.
Mm.
What yellow meant to Prism, what blue meant to Icelander and Kano, essentially. But now red means more than just big attack.
Yeah.
Red in Dromai is amazing. It pretty much sets up your whole game. Your whole game is based around red, yet you can't build an all red deck. So it's really the building decks is becoming more and more difficult, but a
Yeah.
lot more fun. And I think cards like Sigil of Solace that were, it's been a really up and down card.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it heavy early in the game. WTR Arcane, Sigil of Solace was huge, kind of died off in Monarch. We didn't see it as much. And you saw it a little bit more in the last meta here and there. I mean, I think it's an auto 3 in Dromai all day long, because you can just pop that out of your arsenal, gain 3 life, and just start your dragons going. And just depending on your build and what your opponent is, they may or may not have an answer for those dragon shots. And you can start tinging a lot of damage off real fast. So we're in a fun spot, and I think we're transitioning nicely into what the meta and what our meta thoughts are going to be. And I would say excitement would be number one, because we're seeing all kinds of different decks in the top 8 and a lot of decks winning, which is very.
Yeah, I think the game is probably, with the release of Uprising, is probably in the best spot it's been in a long time in terms of new players coming in and people jumping into the competitive scene, because it feels much more balanced and much more open than it did before. I know some people are more opposed to open metas because they feel like it's harder to prepare, but
I love that.
I think that's, to me, that's a kind of a weak mindset to be like, well, it's hard to prepare for a big tournament. You're like, yeah, you got to prepare for everybody. You got to be ready to outplay anybody. Like that's the beauty of it. You can't just be like, well, there's 3 decks. How do I beat those 2 decks? My entire sideboard is tech into the worst of the 2 matchups, that kind of thing. I love that this meta is wide open, that so many decks are playable, that so many decks are interesting, that things are viable. People get to play what they want and not feel like one deck just kind of dumps on them. We're in a position where, I've said it before, I get it. I know everybody understands how much I dislike Prism as a Guardian and Wizard player, but we're actually in an interesting spot where, like, if Prism rises too high because she's like the leftover powerhouse, if on some off chance we're like, oh wow, Prism is really strong, she very quickly just sees her way right out the door with a living legend of her own. Like, it's such an interesting place where the meta is.
I think Dromai in the illusionist battle is just better, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's like another matchup that I'm super interested in how those kind of matchups play out, and what they look like.
So my opinion on the meta right now is we're on the first date phase of the meta. We're just kind of feeling each other out, seeing what works, what doesn't. You might not pull out your best moves right now because you want to try this other lesser move to see if that gets through, because you're seeing a lot of different decks played. My opinion is by like week 3 or 4 of these RTNs, we will see Card rise from the ashes. We're going to see Fi rise from the ashes, because he's very easy to play. And he does a huge amount of damage. So I think you're going to see Fi rise up, which is typical. Red
deck wins.
Red burn wins.
Yeah.
Here's my horrible hot take. If that happens, and I was playing solitaire in hands, and it can do so much and shut this deck down, Azalea is legit good. Between Knock the Death Whistle, Red in the Ledger, and a couple Memorial Grounds, you have a chance to throw 6 Red in the Ledgers. And to get that first one, you have 6 cards to find that first Red in the Ledger. And if you start dominating that into Fi and only giving him one move, that game is over really fast and she becomes strong.
Yeah. I
there's going to be a lot of decks, counter decks, and Lexi obviously is going to be great. So I know Lexi's
yeah,
probably still the better ranger, just because she can do a lot of the stuff. But I think Red in the Ledger is going to be. It's one of the strong. There's a reason why it's for Azalea only. Because if it was
yeah.
any other
If it
deck,
was
that
just
deck would just
accessible to
win.
anybody else, yeah,
Yeah, it's one of the strongest cards in the game.
yeah,
Period.
yeah.
It's just not with the strongest character.
Yeah, I think that that was like the interesting thing in some testing games. I played some testing games of um, Lexi into Fi, and I thought it was interesting because I didn't have great hands early with Lexi and took some damage and got out of the gate pretty slow to the point that I was behind by 12 to 15 life. Like I was at 17, and it was like this weird moment where it almost felt like when Prism stabilizes into Guardian, where it feels like Guardians are kind of pounding away at her and she's
Yep.
taking a beating, and then all of a sudden she double auras and then double auras, and you're like, oh no, this
Yep.
is the end. And then she swings and then hits you with an ode, and you're just like, oh god, this is it. I'm spiraling, and she kind of stabilizes and takes control. It was interesting because I felt like I had that moment where I got a Rain Razors in Arsenal, or no, I got a Raid Razors and Arsenal with a Chilling Ice Vein and a Three of a Kind, like kind of all lined up my turn, and I basically just said, you know what, you don't get a hand, like you're not gonna have cards at the end of this thing,
Or you're gonna
and
have so many frostbites you can't do anything.
yeah, and it the ability of that deck to just manipulate Fi's ability to play, because he does need he's kind of a classic aggro deck in this game where aggro decks play best with bigger hands, and
Yep.
control decks can function off of one or two pretty much all day long. And I found it interesting because I got way behind, and I was probably close. I was at 20 or less when I finally kind of got control of the game, and I got the frostbite generation going, and I started puking out frostbites and hit effects. And then next thing we know, I look over and I realize I think I took 3 more damage the rest of the game. Because
Yeah.
once I started just shredding his hand and he couldn't afford to do anything, so it's weird because I think you're 100% right in the fact that we're going to see decks kind of shoot out and run away. But right now, since there isn't really like these big powerhouses or decks are more easily targetable, it's interesting because we could see like a big jump in a certain decks, and then all of a sudden the counters just become the best decks. But then what's the count? Do you bring the counter or the counter
To the
to the
counter.
counter? And it's some of that is just getting a feel for what you think your meta is like, what people are going to play. And that's when a game is at its best, is when there are lots of options, lots of solutions, and no real definable problem, right? Like if Fi is good or Prism is good or Dromai is good or Icelander gets strong, there are solutions. And that is like the game is in such a good place right now. And I think
Oh, I think so.
yeah, I would go so far. We've been playing like I appreciated this week. We got people were talking about podcasts, and I mentioned us, and somebody responded. They said you're the OGs, and I was like, I do feel like we're kind of OGs. We've been around for a long time. We've played a lot of metas. We've gotten to play every set of the game in the sealed format in like
Yep.
competitive events, and I think that Uprising is the best sealed set since the inception of the game in Welcome to Wraith. I think it's everything about this set makes me think of how Uprising felt like. That all the decks were viable, you could draft them all, you could build them all. It just, if you got the right packs, you were good to go.
The reason I 100% agree with that is, and we're just going to use draft is going to be the major. Yes, there'll be sealed,
Yep.
but we'll just consider draft as the major format. And in draft, you see people drafting different heroes in each draft
Yeah.
of the event in 3-0ing. A good player is 3-0ing with Vi, they're 3-0ing with Dromai, and they're
Mm-hmm.
3-0ing with Icelander. So knowing the card pool is going to be super important on how you draft.
Mm.
And the fact that you can win with any deck like that or lose. And in sealed, you have a little bit of a triangle. I understand that that's sealed. That's fine. But
Yeah.
for the major events, draft is a major event format for sealed events. So I think we're good with where we're at.
Yeah.
It's very hard to build a set that functions as well as this one is functioning right now.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had this. We have. I mean, I'm gonna cut out WTR and Arcane, and even in Arcane, if
Yeah.
you draft Kano, you can just win, or if you got Teklo,
Yeah.
you could just, there was a couple cards that could just win.
Yep.
So if you go past that Monarch, I mean, this has been the best set for, you didn't have a Chain, you didn't have a Briar, you didn't have a Starvo that just was right out of the gates flying. Fi is amazingly fast, but there's so many answers to it, and there's good cards to wipe away a lot of his abilities. Like even if they're going for the high draconic chain links, just erase face even erases the draconic, and
Yeah.
then they can't get the Phoenix Flame. Because I played some games where you'd get 2-3 Phoenix Flames out, and then all of a sudden next thing you know, you're on a card and you've already had 3 go against. Oh, look, it's Salt the Wound. How many times I hit you? Oh, 7 times in this because I'm playing Kodachis. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is Assault the Wound for 9, and it has go again.
Yeah.
So it's disgusting, but that deck can be shut down by so many other decks that it's fine. That it will get played more, in my opinion, eventually. But like you said, with Lexi, even bad start, you just need that one turn with her to get tempo. So you block out, and that's when in doubt, block it out.
Yep.
And don't take damage so you can get 4 back meaningless or 6 back meaningless damage. If you just keep blocking,
Yeah.
and keep your life up, then you can take a huge 10-15 hit because you know you're just going to get control of the game.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm going to take this. I'm going to have control, and you can suck it from here on out.
Yeah. I think that one of the interesting things that came out this last week was, I don't know if you saw the interview with James White on the French podcast. I'm not sure how to say the name, so I'm just going to say the French podcast because I would absolutely maul it.
I did not.
So in that one, he revealed that LSS has 35 employees. Like, they're still a very small company. And I think a lot of us forget sometimes that they aren't, Wizards of the Coast. They aren't Konami or Bandai. They don't have massive, groups of people doing every part of the game. And I'm 100% sure that there are multiple people in that office who are, they're pulling double duty. And slowly, as they've gone from like 12 or 15 employees to 35, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that some other people are getting to focus more on like their department, right? Like, they get to work on their job specifically. They're not spending 6 hours a week or 8 hours a week, like a whole workday, helping other departments because they're just kind of short staffed. And that's no knock on LSS, right? I think that the slow hiring process, I would prefer that they're hiring the right people and not just like shoving people into the office seats. Just like, look, man, I know you don't understand what you're doing, but just do something because we're dying here. I like that. I appreciate that now they're kind of building this company. They're getting good people in the right places. And it feels like the company is like in a really good spot right now in terms of their ability to kind of do everything. Like, they're doing all the things they're doing well. The only thing that I think a lot of people are hoping for is that we can get a little more lead time on event locations and dates and stuff. But James said they're doing that too. He's like, we're working on it. We're trying. They're 35 people. You can only ask them to do so much,
Tough to find spots all over in the world and locations.
Yeah.
They don't know. But, if they want to bring something to Minneapolis, just call us.
I love it.
We have a great international airport, rated one of the best in the country. You can hop right on a train to the Mall of America and right from there to the convention center downtown Minneapolis or your hotel. Everything you need.
Yeah. Bring
one out to Minneapolis. Don't do it in winter. Don't go past October or before like April 15th,
Yeah.
Stay after tax day and before Halloween, and we'll be good.
Yeah.
But bring one here. We'll help you out. We'll get it set up.
Yeah, it'd be great. I would love something here. It's cool to see like the Battle Hardened in LA and to see like the Attack Action guys are going to be doing that one, which is cool. I'm excited to hear some different. It's cool to hear new voices and casting and get things mixed up. It's exciting. Like Flake and Tannen and those guys are all going to France, so you'll get like the normal crew that you kind of expect, and then you kind of get your what it feels like is like it's like Fox, when you're like watching, there's like the Fox broadcast or the CBS, you get Tony Romo if you're watching the main event. So if you're watching Lily, you get Tony Romo. Greg Olson's a good guy. I like his commentary. He's good. I mean, he's not Tony Romo, but he could be one day, you got to give other guys a chance to do some commentary.
telecasting the Vikings Detroit game. We get,
Yeah,
you know,
you get Greg Olson. You still get a former big leaguer. Big NFL guys. So
yeah.
I'm
We
excited.
can't all be Tony Romo.
We can't all be Tony Romo. Like he's a gift from God. It's all I can say. So maybe
As long as there's no Joe Bucks, we're fine.
yeah, let's stay away from a Joe Buck or Troy Aikman kind of matchup. And that's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming from a Cowboys fan. I just want to point that out. I love Troy Aikman when he played quarterback. I do not enjoy Troy Aikman, the broadcaster. But I think that like we're headed in a really good direction with this game, and I really am excited. Like where we're seeing Uprising, it's like, man, if this is like what we're getting going forward, everything's going the right way. It's all trending the right direction. Like stonks, baby, stonks.
Up.
Yeah.
My issue now, though, is we're getting so many heroes. I have like 7. So I continue to have my play bad. So I had this conversation with Bates at the end on Tuesday because I played Levia and I played a bad Levia list. It was my own. It was a horrible list. 03, just bad. I do fairly well in big events. You know what I mean? I can top 8, 1 or 2 with ProQuest seasons and things like that. So I do fairly well, but at Armories, I bring weird decks and I usually don't play the same deck for a month straight.
Yeah.
And Bates is like, you gotta stop doing that. I'm like, well, I don't want to just bring a deck that smashes people's face, like my best deck that just people need to get their face smashed. How was they gonna learn? He got so upset with me in a funny way that because I play a lot of bad decks sometimes at Armories. Like I don't usually ever play the deck I'm gonna play in RTN or ProQuest. Not because I'm trying to keep it secret, but if I think it's highly tuned, I try not to bring those to Armories. And I'm not saying I'm a great player. I'm just saying I just don't do that. I never once played Starvone and Armory except for the very first one when he's brand new at Viral, and I won the event with it. It was just so that's why I kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah. I
don't need to win Armory events to feel validated.
Yeah.
I guess like you know what I mean. I don't grind hard. Like I need to win every like. Otherwise, I would be playing the same deck every week, and it'd be super annoying. I always play different decks. I enjoy that. That's my play style. So hopefully everybody else has
I'm curious actually about how other people. I know some people are like the one deck person, and that's how they roll. Some people do things. It's interesting. I play on Tuesdays a lot. The place that I play on Tuesdays, they keep things mixed up because their player base is pretty new. They're still building the game in their store, but they're a very new player friendly environment. They try to do lots of draft and sealed, which I like that. That's a fun way to play on like a Tuesday night.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's very new player friendly. And then sometimes they do like fun events. They did Commoner one week. Occasionally they'll do a spicy blitz night where whoever has the spiciest deck is the one who gets the play, and everyone's going to vote on the spiciest deck, and that's the person who gets like the people's chant mat is whoever comes with like the spiciest deck, which I appreciate some of those kind of things because it lightens it up. I have basically played nothing but Kano, but I am so committed to him that I play him in all formats. So in Blitz, he'll be a little overtuned and constructed. I've had sections of time where I'm just like, this is kind of rough. Like, this not go well. I played him in Commoner. Not gonna lie, Commoner Kano, it's a rough life, man. I went 3-1, but it was grindy. Like Kano felt like a control deck where it's just like, I'm not gonna let you have cards. I'm gonna constantly hit you with arcane damage. But it was like I was gonna 2-card arcane them and then pass every single turn because I was playing like Riftings in my deck to try and like play second instance, like an instant on a turn.
Isn't that when you turn him into like Sun Kiss Moonwish?
See, that's my next iteration of Kano is when we do the next Spicy Blitz night. It's going to be Life Gain Kano because now we've got the Healing Potion, which is just like Sun Kiss, right? So now you can have 4 red, 3 life gain cards. So you can gain 12 life with Kano in a spicy blitz deck.
You make Talishar Kano and really mess with people's emotions.
And then just go like
pack the arcane and it's all attacks.
Just in red light, do like Ravenous Rabbles and E Strikes. It's just all red lined. And the whole point of the deck is just to like rabble into E Strike into gain 3 life.
Ravenous Rabble So after playing Briar a lot, I love the card because you could set up your turn. You
Hmm.
start with that and just see what's coming up, and you can kind of plot out your turn you're playing, your next turn. So I was playing solitaire with Azalea. Ravenous Ravel is so good. So you can do your opt with your meat wrap.
Yep.
It looks like a meat wrap. That's why I call it your skull wrap. And then if it's bad, you put that under. Then you get another opt with your ravenous ravel.
Yeah.
And if you're playing glides, you could have 3 opts a turn. And I'm running red and yellow glides in 3 ravenous. So getting 2-3 ops a turn is pretty realistic,
Yeah.
which means the dominated arrow. And if it's not an arrow that has a good hit effect, I'll even bury that knowing that something else. And if I have another arrow in hand, you might pop up just something that buffs it, and then you'll put that in just to get the buff on your next arrow.
Yeah.
Like it's that card. That's another card that you wait for another common card like that that'll show up. That it's such a good card.
Yeah.
Like
It's
you could run it in so many decks. You
Yeah.
could just build decks around belittles and ravenuses and belittle minimalism is my next ban
target.
errata list prediction.
Yeah.
That ooh, we'll see what happens. That could get broken fast in these red decks.
Interestingly enough, that does appear to be the card that most people have the biggest issue with right now. Is they just everybody hates belittle minnowism because it's just like, oh, it's stupid. I hate that card. It needs to be banned. I I definitely tend to want to see the meta fleshed out. I don't particularly like calling for bans based on my testing, which, to be fair, we've got a good group of players who play a lot of games. So I don't, when we speak, I think that's the thing sometimes too, is we don't just speak from our experience, right? Like what we do at Armory or what we run into. We a lot of times speak from all the people we play with locally, group chats that we're in, and we get other people's opinions on things. And I get that belittle minnowism good, but I definitely don't like the people who are already like, it needs to be banned right now. It's like, come on, man. Can we just wait until we act? Like, let a deck get relatively dominant, or let it be a problem in like 4 decks or 5 decks, because it is different than, when I remember the days when people were like, oh, they should just ban CNC or E strikes, basically because people didn't like that they were expensive cards. But I belittle minnowism, I understand when people get annoyed because they're like, you just shove 6 belittles in your deck and you're good to go. It's like, yeah, I mean, I understand that can be a little frustrating when someone every turn is just like belittle, reveal. You're like, oh my God, come on, seriously, man. But,
It can, but like I said, I'm not saying I'm not calling. Don't get me wrong. I am not calling for a ban. I'm just
you just
predicting
predict.
that if there is a ban coming, that is the one that will be next. Would
Yeah.
be the belittle minnowism. And you wouldn't need to. You only need to get rid of belittle minnowism's fine.
Yeah,
You
people
can
want to keep it, they can have it.
Yeah, I mean, a 0 cost buffing 3 less, great.
Yeah.
It's a poor man's nimbleism, but
Yeah.
you can run it.
Yeah, it's just nimbleism.
Yep. So belittle, I could see being on the ban, the short list, but we'll see because I'm gonna run it in my Dromai. I put in, and I didn't go crazy with it. So I wanted 1 cost go agains, and is key in Dromai obviously because
Yep.
you can't just rely on your dragons getting popped. You have to have other things in make your opponent decide what they want to block. So I put in three reds, belittles, 3 red minnowisms. Kyle played so I rolled a dice for what deck I played on Tuesday, and it just happened to be Levia. It was between, what did I put in the pool? Levia, Dromai, Briar, and Lexi was the 4 that I was going to possibly play. So the dice gave me Levia. Kyle played my Dromai, and then I got his input from it and made changes based on cards that I was just missing and cards that just kind of sucked. So had to give more of those block points in the deck while you're building it. So anytime you can, the belittle turns on your dragons going again, plus you're usually going to pitch a red for it, make an ash. It does everything you want.
Yeah.
So I also put in frontline scouts because In the last meta, I had him in, but they weren't as important because Starvo would just show you his hand anyway, so you didn't really need to see it because they're showing it to you. But with Dromai, from Arsenal, easy to Arsenal it has go again, but now I can see if they have any poppers and it decides how I do the rest of my turn.
Yeah.
So to me, it was a very important card for that reason. So there's so many builds in these decks, which I love. There's
Yeah.
no right or wrong. There's just what cards do you like? Put them in and see what they do.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing about the meta right now is the meta feels really wide open in terms of what we're going to see, and that makes it kind of hard to actually do the whole what's the first shift we see in the meta. You know what I mean? Like what's the first adjustment we see in the meta? Because when you don't have a ton of data. Now this weekend I think there are a lot more RTNs. Last weekend a lot of the US ones got pushed back this weekend or next weekend because we had the delay in product. They were trying not to do RTNs on.
The 4th of July.
Yeah, it was the 4th of July. It was release weekend now. I think they were. I know some stores actually had them scheduled anyway, like on Saturday, which was probably fine. You probably would have still got a pretty good crew out on a Saturday, but at that point, it's really hard to ask people to play in an Uprising meta on Saturday when people were getting their cards on Friday at best or Saturday at worst a lot of times. So I appreciate they pushed it back, but as a result of that, we don't have a ton of data yet. We have mostly a few sparse things here. I thought it was interesting that we did see a Dromai got an RTN win, a Reinar got an RTN win. So just that alone shows me, okay, we got a new deck that already got one, and then we got an OG deck that didn't win a ton in like ProQuest season that all of a sudden, hey, here's Reinar. He's showing up. It's time.
Really, really shocked that Dromai won. That is that a mango cart?
Yes, it is. Did you...
God, I love those.
They're so good, right?
God, they're perfect for this time of year.
They're so good. Yeah.
I was shocked, especially looking at the list. They didn't have Thaw on it, which also shocked me. I don't know how you run a Dromai list without Thaw. Like, it just seems like it's an auto include because it's
just in case and stuff.
So that just because there's other decks that just seem like they really win against Dromai, but that just depends on what RTN you were. Did everybody go with newer decks? What were they trying? I don't think we would get away with that early here, just because you're going to have people like Lexi will be out in force. I'm like 90% on Lexi right now. If the RTN was this week, there's no doubt in my mind I'd be playing Lexi. We have 2 weeks, so I have no idea what I will play. But Lexi's just good. I played her in the last ProQuest. I feel very comfortable with her. She didn't need a ton of new toys, but she has things that you could possibly put in. You could run the same deck that I previously ran. So the adjustment's going to be weird because, like you said, we don't know what's going to start.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to Eric on Tuesday, and he was like, "What are you going to play in RTN season?" And I think he fully expected me to just go Kano, duh. But the issue with Kano is without any metadata, I don't know exactly how to adjust him. And Kano is a deck that, without information is a real dangerous play, because you can just kind of walk into a room and look around and go, "Oh, I made a mistake. I messed up. I messed up real bad."
So Kano scares me because Dromai doesn't even really need to run too much equipment.
Yeah.
She's just her Aether Ash wings are gonna. So if she starts with 1 or 2 arcane, eventually she'll get to a point where it becomes really hard to kill her on those important. And she runs enough blue or not a lot of blue, but enough. And then you have Flame Scale that you can instant to get. I mean, there's so many little tricks I learned from playing Icelander that I'm seeing where Kano's gonna struggle a little bit.
Yeah,
right now. There's people diehards will still play him, but he's gonna struggle a little bit.
He needs to know what's going on. I'm 100% prepared to play a very different Kano that's a little more combo-esque to try and counteract, because I think a lot of people are also going to run Oasis Respite, which is going to mess with people. But that's where I think Kano, like savvy Kano players, might finally start to look to some interesting answers and cards that we have never seen actually played in Kano. And it may be time for the rise of the instant. Like maybe rewinds and aetherize all of a sudden get a lot more interesting, because imagine hitting someone with a wildfire from Arsenal and they get cute and they go, "Oh, I don't even need to worry about that. I'll just Oasis respite." And you go, "Ah, but aetherize from Arsenal?" Like all of a sudden the turn completely changes.
Was built for a reason. I
Yeah.
mean, I love the card. I loved it when it first came out, just in negate. And maybe that's from our DBS days that
Yeah.
negate was such a good keyword that God, you just love negate and stuff. When somebody gets all
Yeah.
excited to play something, you're just like, nope.
Yeah. Well, and I mean,
God, it's good.
it's even stuff I think people forget. Like it, if Jeromai is going to be a problem, well, she has sand cover and she wants to play Sigil of Solace. All of a sudden, you can just aetherize those things, or you play
Right.
Alexi and they Art of War. Well, guess what? You don't get that Art of War. Fies are running Art of
So
Wars.
getting
Like,
so we had talked about this a long time ago. I had considered running negate in Kano months and months ago because of Art of War,
yep,
and now it's getting closer to Art of War is becoming in so many decks.
yeah,
So they go through, pay their costs, and then they just get nothing.
yep. The card just
Nothing.
disappears.
It's just gone. And now they have no turn
Yeah,
in
it's
cards. And now you do Kano things
yeah.
because they have nothing.
When you get to you can set things up. You play to those turns, right? Like I think people always perceive it as, well, like you have to have the resources to play those kind of cards and have them. You're like, yeah, but that's what Kano can do, right? Is he's going to set out e-pots and set up deja vus, and
You
he's
block out for
yeah.
big turns.
You wait into certain decks you're at to play. I'm really excited about the potential of someone being like, I play Thamai, and you just go, yeah, let's rewind that. let's just go ahead. You just put that in the graveyard. There will be no interact. I will interact on your turn whenever I feel like it. I will negate it. You can have an action point though, so feel free to do whatever you want with the action point now. But there will be no stopping me from Kanoing. Like it's stuff like that I think, right? Like you said, Aetherize was made for a reason. It existed. We forget a lot of times. We had this discussion last week with Flake when he was on. Their cards were designed in different spaces. So, like, they knew about stuff that was coming. They didn't make Aetherize and then one day go, oh, we should make instants that interact with damage. Like, they knew all this stuff was coming. It was part of the design process. So they released Aetherize knowing stuff was coming. So it just makes things interesting. And then, I think that's what I'm excited about. Is it's a wide open meta. Even as a Kano player who feels like, man, this could be a bad meta, it's like, maybe it's time for me to come up with some interesting answers. I can come up with my own interesting answers, which is cool.
What's the new generic that blocks non-attacks?
Stops non-attacks. Fog down, the one that shuts off their go again.
That's another scary card for a lot of decks. Because right now I don't have it in anything, but that you put those cards like right here in the corner of your mind. Like there's a 3-card sideboard card right there.
Yep.
I'm not putting in a deck right now, but if Viserai becomes super strong, I'm gonna fog the shit out of you and just fog down, because now what are you gonna do?
Just take a turn.
You can hit me for 4 and not have go again.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, well, it gets even better. It gets even better in Guardian, because now with Imposing Visage, you can effectively run 6 copies of it, right? Like now, if you just go like, I just Imposing Visage, I'm just going to go get that fog down that I need, or that Stamp Authority.
Right.
Like you can play
and hit it.
Yeah, you can play a very control-y version, and it's they interact, counteract, all that kind of stuff is going to be really cool, and
I think we don't know where the meta is going to move, but that's the pieces to answer early metas are there.
Yeah.
So if Viserai, which is very strong, fog down maybe comes out hard, and maybe Viserai is so strong that you throw in 1 or 2 remembrances to bring fog down
back. Yeah.
So that you don't let them do anything.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat me with all these go agains and then revel in rune blood and hit me for 18, rune chance with an attack after you've attacked me twice and still hit me with the sword for another 4.
Yeah.
There's a card now and I love that. There's a card to answer it. But finding spot, can they make our deck size 90 now? Because that would be great. If I could have another 10 more card sideboard, God, that would be glorious.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest part now is we're starting to hit that stage in the game where it's like, man, tuning these decks and tightening up the sideboards is going to be tough.
It's crazy because the WTR arcane days, it's like you filled honestly, you might fill 6 to 8 cards of just utter trash.
You're never going to play them.
Like
They just never go
right,
in.
you never
Yeah.
played them, they just filled out the deck. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like or you would struggle filling out the 80. Now I'll go on and build a deck on FabDB and I'll be at like 95 cards. I'm like, son of a bitch, I gotta cut 15 cards. I want all of these.
Yeah.
And now I gotta cut 15. Because you
Yep.
immediately start thinking of, you know, that all you got, fog down. I'm thinking of all these different decks I might be going and these cards are very good at. And it's like, well, now we gotta predict your local meta. You gotta
Mhm.
kind of watch what's coming in on the Fab TCG website to see the deck list to be like, okay, and what's coming in is all different. So that's not helping us decide what cards to put in.
Yeah. It becomes a huge challenge, which is cool. It separates the best from the rest, and that's a cool place to be. I think before we end, because we're probably close to wrapping up, but I think we
I
have to. What's that?
Yeah, I have a quick thing too.
Okay,
So yeah.
I was gonna say I think we have to talk about the revelation from James White of the Emperor, the coming of
Okay.
the Emperor, right, in Dynasty, and then
So Dynasty
a new
was what
class.
I just
Okay,
wanted a quick
yep,
prediction from Dynasty. So we're on the same page.
yeah, always are. We're always on the same page. We know what we're talking about. We have show
Yep,
notes and
yep.
everything. We're good. We're so good at this. Professional podcasters. It's taken only 2 years.
But we're there.
We're there. We're
We're there.
pros. We're pros.
Suck it, everybody. We're there.
What an intro to the show that will make. So I'm very excited for Dynasty just because it sounds very cool, but again, this proves just how well James White is running this company and how much he knows, because the fact that we just got a set release, we're so excited about the meta, and all of a sudden now we're already thinking about the next set, which isn't until November. We have months of RTNs and
Which is good.
nationals.
I love that.
Yeah, like
One of my favorite parts of the game.
I'm excited for a new set release. But I was just talking about this actually with my wife the other night because I opened 3 cases of Uprising. So I was like, man, it's a pretty big investment. It's a lot of boxes worth of money that you're throwing at it. But it feels good when you're not playing one of these games that has a release every 62 hours. Like
Right.
I can do it. I can jump into it a little bit. But I'm excited for Dynasty because it's like, man, I'm excited for the game right now. I'm excited to play the Uprising meta, how it changes, how it evolves. But I'm already excited for something in November. This is crazy. Like I'm ready for a new set just because I'm so curious what's going to happen with it.
Yeah, it's nice not to have like it seems like every week there's a pre-release for Magic event going on. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's always a pre-release. There's
yeah,
always new cards coming out. How do you it's too much of a time like that type of time investment. I would have had to quit the game from my vacation going on because I'd be so lost already from
yeah,
being gone for 2 weeks.
yep.
I'd just be like,
Gone for
yeah,
2
I'm
weeks.
just out of the game. I have no idea what's
You
going on
you
anymore.
missed 4 meta shifts. You were gone for 14 days.
Right. So Dynasty Dynasty is this a full set or is this a supplemental set considered?
Yep, supplemental.
Okay,
They did call it.
so
They did change. Just I know somebody mentioned this online. I'm going to say it here so that maybe more people will hear about it. They did change the name of supplementary set. They're going to be called expansion sets now. They're no longer supplementary sets. They were originally labeled as supplementary. Now they're expansion.
I like supplemental better. I like that name.
Yeah, I that feels
Because
like
everything is expansion. Like
right.
every
Yeah.
set is an expansion. I did
Mhm.
like the supplemental set.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
assume
fair.
they changed it just to be a little more on. That's one of those like subtle things to maybe be a little more on brand with other card games to try and
Right.
yeah. Other card games refer
That
to
makes
things as
sense.
expansions that aren't main sets, but yeah.
So before Uprising came out, I said, God, if they made Icelander an adult hero, I would 100% be on board and playing her. And then they did it, and I haven't played her, I haven't even built her, so I lied. But anyway, I'm going to repeat this with a different hero.
Okay.
If they give Kasai an adult hero,
Mm-hmm.
I am going to build and play her because I think she has the tools as an adult hero that makes her very hard to block properly because it's not Dorinthia.
Yeah.
and blood on her hands and making the coinage and having 3 of those over the course of the game. Yeah, and now cash-in's a real card with that because her coinage is going to be so high, and I think she'd be a cool hero in the
Hmm.
adult form. So I'm hoping that they adulterize. Wait, that's not a thing.
Yeah, I think that's
'Cause
bad. I think adulterizing
yeah, I
is
think
bad.
that's bad. Yeah, I think that's a sin. But yeah, if they give us an adult Kasai, that'd be pretty sweet. Out of like, there's not many young besides Cheyenne, which I would make a Cheyenne deck if she was an adult. I hate to admit it, but I 100% would. I'd be bad. I'd still play it, and I'd lose, and I'd enjoy it. But I think Kasai, of all the young heroes out there right now, I would most excited to see her
Mhm.
because I think she has the highest potential to be another really good hero.
Yeah. I think the thing that I'm excited for Dynasty because I'm very curious about two things that I think it's worth giving predictions on this early, because if we're wrong, everyone will forget it.
Cares?
But if we're
Nobody
right,
remembers.
we get to dig back
We
in the
will.
archive. I'm going to put
Yes,
a
we'll
maybe
write
what
it
I'll
down.
do is I'm going to put a reminder in my phone of this episode in like November 14th. I'm going to
Did we call it?
Did we call it correctly? So my question to you, I have two of them, and this is how we can end this show with brilliant predictions. My questions to you are this: Who is the Emperor? Do we already know them, or are they a new character? And what's the new class?
Okay. Emperor, I'm gonna wait. So
Okay.
new class. I was looking at the lore page
Mm-hmm.
of what we have, what we don't have. So we just got the bards. We don't have alchemist on the main page. We don't have necromancer from the main page. We don't have assassin.
Yes. Yep.
So out of those 3, I would say what is more different than any heroes we have now? And I think it's obvious that it's alchemist, because necromancer is too much like a runeblade,
Mm-hmm.
and assassin, a ninja, a warrior, all of them could be, any of these heroes could be an assassin, right?
Right.
But alchemist, with all the items we have, all the potions we have, it would be, I would imagine, a very hard character to run. I would find it to be like on wizard extreme level, because you would have to have 0 block cards, or maybe the alchemist can block with 0 block potions.
Yeah. Maybe he has an equipment or something where he can
Right, that
use
that he
them.
just throws the fucking potion. It's like a defense. I don't know. There's
Right.
so much. So I think alchemist. That would be my prediction.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you because
Oh
I think
wow.
I 100% think Everfest set us up. They used one supplemental or expansion set to set up the next, which is something they love to do. I think that all of the potions were set up because we now have a ton of it, and also things like Life of the Party and Knick-Knack Bric-a-Brac all of a sudden become playable cards because you need to get those cards out of your deck. You need Knick-Knack Bric-a-Brac if the alchemist has some way to make the coins and then cash them
Right.
in for items to clear them from the deck. Now you can set up some crazy combo wombo
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah, in the design space, like maybe they don't use attacks. The potions are what they're attacking with.
Yeah.
Like if you make these certain potions, they do this damage.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much cool stuff they could do with
They
that.
they've definitely set a precedence for destroying items to get something. So is it possible that the alchemist needs to get an energy pot, a time snap potion, and deja vu on board, and then they play a card that's basically using those different items to create their they're using alchemy to combine different potions to make
Right.
something that creates damage. And
I would love it because I just bought the game Alchemist. It's an older game,
yeah.
and it's crazy because you actually have to know form. I'm excited to play it. I haven't played it, just got it. Been looking for it forever, got it. So having an alchemist in this game would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So now here's where I'm going to be disappointed.
Okay.
I'm not a big PvE fan on this game.
Mhm.
PvE in general is great. That's fine. If you want to play cooperative card games with someone, there's plenty of them out there. I don't like when games try to do too much in one game. This is a competitive card game. Keep it that way. Let the fans make a PvE version. I think the Emperor is going to be the intro to PvE. I think that's what the environment people are going to play against. I think it'll be a new character that you're playing against. That's my prediction for Emperor.
He did say it was playable, but I guess that's you could. I think in a PVE format, the PVE formats are interesting because you can, in a lot of PVE formats, you can have like one person be the environment.
Yes.
Yeah, it ends up
Tons
being,
of board games do
yeah,
that where it's one versus many.
yeah, and then the one typically has
Imperial
advantages.
Assault
And, yeah,
yeah. I mean, there's.
Yep.
I'm not gonna go through them all. But
Yeah.
I was gonna start, and I just changed my mind.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I would love to hear other people's opinions. You know, I might actually do that real quick while we're wrapping up. I'm gonna put a reminder in my phone for.
What is your prediction for Emperor?
So
is it a character now or is it new?
I
How is?
I think it's gonna be new. I know a lot of
Yep.
people are convinced that it's gonna be Kano, but I don't know that I believe that, because the big thing is when we're talking about Kano, I get that Kano is like royalty in Volcorp, but he kind of strikes me as more of like Vader-esque. You know what I mean? Like to relate it to Star Wars, Kano has that kind of Vader-esque quality to him where he feels a little bit like he could be like the Emperor's pit bull, that he unleash they unleash the Emperor unleashes Kano on his enemies, and he's kind of like
Right.
his like attack dog, and he goes, no, Kano's going to take care of this. But Kano seems like he's kind of feral. You know what I mean? Like he kind of seems like maybe the Emperor has a hard time reining him in sometimes, and he gets a little caught up
Right.
in the burn down
That's very
entire
Vader.
villages. Yeah, that
very
feels kind of like what he is. So I kind of expect the Emperor and Kano to have that kind of
Could be his dad.
relationship. Maybe it's just Kano's like mentor. Kano is Drakai, so I believe my understanding of the lore is like Kano is a Drakai, which makes him like nobility or royalty
Right.
in
So it could
Volcor.
Could be a family member.
Yeah.
His dad. Something.
Could be
like
a
that.
member. You have to be.
What if it's
so.
like? What if it's like Fendal?
That would be pretty crazy. That like Findal is. We come to find out Findal is the Emperor.
The Emperor, because that it's everywhere. Like that's
yeah.
something eventually has to happen with that.
They have to
There's
reveal
building
to us
up to
Fendal,
it.
yeah. It's similar, you know, sometimes I think Fendal has something to do with like the cracked bauble. Is it going to reveal something that's going to give us a
Right.
hint? But then I wonder, you know, they've been big on letting some mysteries stay for years, and I wonder if we won't play that game for a long time where they want to keep some of that stuff as special because it's something that like is only James knows, and it's in his safe who Findal really is. Like the lore,
Right.
the lore of the actual
I would
character,
imagine that he, that was something he came up with, and then
Yeah.
they twist it.
Yeah, they
It
use
is funny though, listening to the one where he's talking about back in the day, his 10,000 hours. He's like, this
Yeah.
game was really shitty when it started. When he said that, I just laughed. Really, it was really shitty, and you
Yeah.
have to. I think it's good, and that's why this game's come successful, is because you realize you have something very shitty, but it's something shitty that you can turn into something. It's like the
Yeah.
South Park episode. Bono was the biggest piece of shit in the world. That's he was 8 Keurigs big, and he became a rock star. But he started out as a piece of shit.
Yeah,
Piece of shit.
that's what it was. What a way to end. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
A perfect end to an episode is talking about a South Park episode and Bono and James White and how bad this game was when it started. So
Yeah, and now it's a beautiful thing.
it's a beautiful thing. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate you guys. We're going to continue to do the subscriber giveaway. We've got sets of heralds. We did talk about it, and we have sets of heralds and playmats. Each of us do. And I think we're going to start running maybe next week. We talked about beginning to run a weekly Twitter contest. So each of us will run one. We'll give away heralds. We'll give away playmats. But over the next 6 weeks, we have probably to give stuff away. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. If you don't follow us on Twitter already, we have them above our names. We have them in the description. Go follow us. We're interesting, if nothing else. We're funny. Somebody talked about how...
If you don't find us, we'll find you too.
We'll find
so
you.
Just remember that.
We will. I did comment on somebody's... They asked about podcasts. They said, you can come listen to us. We've been around for a long time. We're, closing in on 100 episodes, which means either we're very interesting and people like us, or we're a train wreck that people can't take their eyes off. Either way,
win.
We're good entertainment, right? Either way,
Yeah,
you're
win.
You're getting something of value. So follow us there. Subscribe here. We'll do the giveaways as soon as we hit 1,600. So we're not that far away. So tell people to subscribe here. It's mainly just a way to kind of get to 2,000, help with some more visibility. But if we don't, we're not that worried about it, and we'll probably just reevaluate it eventually. Be like, just give them away. I don't care. I'm done with it. We don't have it in us to really be that tied to subscriber goals and all that kind of stuff. It's why we don't like give away money and have all this kind of stuff. We just do it for fun. We love this game. We have a great time. So we hope that you enjoyed yourselves, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
See ya.